We are living in a world where a lot of commotion is happening. Catastrophes, coups and disasters, massive waves of power change and elections, just to mention a few. And with all the premeditated narratives, one needs to seek a pace of peace and tranquility. GBS Ambassador will be here to help you take away the noise and the misinterpretation that seek to pull us apart, giving you hope, happiness, and a pure mindset across Africa and the world at large. Good afternoon. This is the Ambassador, and I'm your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau. But first, let's get to the highlights of today. Israeli military chief issued a stern warning to Iran after the recent retaliatory attack on Monday, stating the nation will face consequences for its recent actions. And Kenya Power implemented cheaper electricity bills for its residents, bringing relief to consumers across the nation. What a good report. And concerning Sudan, international donors pledged over $2.1 billion in humanitarian aid for the nation, following a year-long conflict that pushed the nation to the brink of famine. And charges against Trump are at stake. We are talking of the historic hush money trial concerning Donald Trump that got underway on Monday, with a grueling process selecting a jury to hear the case. And in Togo, analysts are now weighing the parliamentary elections. What do we expect in the upcoming legislative elections? We'll get to see more about this. And we'll also talk about the recent Kenya-South Korea ties and the EU-European Union-China trade row. We have this and more lined up for you in the Ambassador News at 1 p.m. May you stay tuned with us. And now, as we get to the start, in a stern warning to Iran, Israeli military chief declared on Monday that the nation will face consequences for its recent actions. Reports indicate that Iran deployed a barrage of weaponry, including drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles, targeting Israeli territory, where 99% were intercepted by Israeli air defenses and in coordination with the coalition of the Allied forces led by the United States. This follows a retaliatory attack launched by Iran over the weekend, escalating tensions between the two countries. Let's get the report. Israel's military chief warned on Monday that Iran would face the consequences for the actions following an attack on Israel. The Iranian attack on Saturday came as a retaliation for the suspected Israeli strike 2 weeks earlier on an Iranian consular building in the Syrian capital of Damascus that killed 2 Iranian generals.
We are closely assessing the situation. We remain at our highest level of readiness. Iran will face the consequences for its actions. We will choose our response accordingly. The IDF remains ready to counter any threat from Iran and its terror proxies as we continue our mission to defend the State of Israel.
It marked the first time that Iran has launched a direct military assault dating back to the country's 1979 Islamic Revolution. Iran launched hundreds of drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles at the Israeli attack, with the Israeli military stating that 99% of the drones and the missiles were intercepted by Israeli-owned air defenses and the warplanes in coordination with the US-led coalition of partners.
We are working urgently with our allies to de-escalate the situation and prevent further bloodshed.
We have been coordinating a diplomatic response to seek to prevent escalation.
Israeli military chief Lieutenant General Hazi Halevi stated that the country was closely assessing this situation following the attack, and Israel would choose its response accordingly. Halevi spoke during the visit to the Nevatim air base, which Israel stated that it suffered light damage of the Iranian attack, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated to be heading with the top officials to discuss a possible response. Jennifer Macau, JBS News. Moving on, we have an encouraging story from Kenya Power, and in a major announcement, Kenya Power unveiled a significant reduction in electricity costs, bringing relief to consumers across the nation, effective this month of April. Kenya Power implemented a remarkable 13.7% decrease in electricity prices. This reduction attributed to two key factors. One, the strengthening of the Kenya shilling against the American dollar, and a notable decline in fuel prices. Here is more report. Kenya Power has recently announced a significant reduction of 13.7% in the electricity cost, effective from this month onwards, which comes as a welcome relief for the consumers across the country. This notable decrease is primarily attributed to the two key factors. First, the strengthening of the Kenyan shilling against the American dollar, and a notable decline in fuel prices. The reduction in electricity cost is largely driven by the considerable decrease in both the fuel cost charge and foreign exchange fluctuation adjustment, which are vital components of the overall electricity bill. Specifically, between the months of March and April 2024, these variable components experienced a substantial reduction of 37.3%, marking significant improvement in affordability for consumers. That's a big up for Kenya in these economic trying times. And now, in a significant move, international donors pledged over $2.1 billion in humanitarian aid for Sudan, following a year of the long conflict that had pushed the nation to the famine of brink. French President Emmanuel Macron made the announcement at the conclusion of an international conference in Paris aimed at rallying support for Sudan's 51 million people. Let's get the report. Diplomatic envoys, UN officials and the aid agencies urged Sudan warring factions to cease attacks on civilians and allow unimpeded access for humanitarian assistance, called for immediate international mediation efforts, emphasizing on facilitating peace. Civil social belligerents emphasized the importance of upholding international humanitarian rights, as the United Nations estimated $2.7 billion that is required this year to address the needs in Sudan, with some representatives from Sudan participating in the conference.
Today, from the mobilization of our presence, it sends a clear message to the belligerents. We are making a solemn appeal out of respect for international humanitarian rights and for the protection of the civil population. We are exhorting them to install a ceasefire without delay in order to enable humanitarian organizations to reach the entirety of those in Sudan who are in need. We're calling for the reopening of every entry point along the borders to enable the transport and efficient delivery of aid.
Notable absentees were the Sudanese army and the rival paramilitary groups, as Macron highlighted the significance of the donor mobilization in sending a clear message, with only $145 million raised so far. The dire situation includes over 14,000 fatalities, 33,000 injuries, and nearly 9 million displaced individuals. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres stressed on the imperative to support the Sudanese people and to end the conflicts, echoing sentiments from other world leaders. The commitment of $2.1 billion in aid underscores the collective determination to alleviate the suffering and to rebuild Sudan's shattered communities. Jennifer Macau, GBS News. Now let's move to Donald Trump hash money trial, as the historic hash money trial of Donald Trump got underway on Monday with the grueling process of selecting a jury to hear the case, charging the former president with falsifying business records to stifle stories about his sex life. The trial is scheduled to resume on Tuesday. Let's get this report.
The historic hash money trial of Donald Trump got underway Monday with the process of selecting a jury to hear the case, charging the former president with falsifying business records to stifle stories about his sex life. The day ended without any jurors sitting as the selection process was scheduled to resume on Tuesday. Past criminal trial of the former U.S. president began as Trump vies to reclaim the White House, creating a remarkable split-screen spectacle of the presumptive Republican nominee spending his days as a criminal defendant while simultaneously campaigning for the office. He's blended those roles over the last year by presenting himself to supporters on the campaign trail and social media as a target of politically motivating prosecutions designed to derail his candidacy. A norm-shattering presidency shadowed by years of investigation, the trial amounts to a courtroom reckoning for Trump, who faces 4 indictments charging him with crimes ranging from hoovering classified documents to plotting to overturning an election. The political stakes are less clear because a conviction will not preclude him from becoming president, and because the allegation in this case dates back years and are seen as less grievous than the conduct behind the 3 other indictments.
We have a problem with this judge. We have a real problem with a lot of things having to do with this trial, including the DA, because you go right outside and people are being mugged and killed all day long, and he's sitting here all day with 10 or 12 prosecutors over nothing.
They began with hours of pretrial arguments, including a potential fine for Trump, before moving into the start of the jury selection. The first members of the jury pool, 96 in all, were summoned into the courtroom where the parties will decide who among them might be picked to decide the legal fate of the former and potential future American president. Ivy Maven, GBS News.
Campaigns for the upcoming parliamentary elections in Togo are in full swing amidst escalating tensions. With just 2 weeks to go before the April 29th election, the parliamentary election campaigns kicked off in the nation on Saturday with the sensitive tensions and the political maneuvering through the nation's alliance for a change in the ANC party. Advocating for a change, whereas aiming to secure a majority in the National Assembly. However, their efforts had been met with challenges, including the government ban on the protests. More report on the same. Kenya is committed to enhancing its bilateral ties with South Korea to boost trade and economic opportunities. Statements of their partnership veil in the development of technical and vocational educational and training TVET. We were among the key points communed, including the public health, water and sanitation, besides the ICT sectors. President Ruto met with the South Korea Special Presidential Envoy and the first Vice Minister for the Foreign Affairs, that is Hong Kyung-Kim, at the State House in Nairobi, as both nations looked forward to escalating their collaboration in the forthcoming Korea-Africa Summit. Agreements to allowing the positions to promote adherence to international laws and to foster global peace and stability were among the sentiments shared. Chinese President Xi Jinping appeared to give Chancellor Olaf Scholz a gentle reminder about the need to work together as the German leader attempted to balance domestic ties with the ongoing EU trade war. The two met in Beijing on Tuesday, and meanwhile, the German Chancellor highlighted the 7th German international consultation in Berlin that was in late June as a milestone, stating that economic relations between the two countries were a very important issue. Scholz, who has been calling for an increased access in level playing field for the German companies in China, saw his visit overshadowed by the ongoing EU trade war.
the second consecutive year ahead of the United States.
Thank you very much that you are here.
The America First stance will bring about changes for all of us in trade, politics, as well as in foreign and security policies. European integration has undoubtedly suffered setbacks in the recent years, and Great Britain's decision to leave the EU is a grave example of this.
Take a central role with the EU to the challenge new tariffs.
I welcome the opportunities created by the One Belt, One Road initiative. It will bring people and businesses in Asia and Europe closer together. This initiative has been received with great interest all over the world, including Germany and, of course, Europe. It is a strong signal that China wants closer, faster, better connections with its main trading partners. Germany's government is open to cooperation. We want to create synergies between European and Chinese approaches, but we are also committed to our principles. It should be an open initiative based on market rules and international standards. We must use the tool of international cooperation.
And that international news brings us to our first break. There is more coming up for you. Next, we'll talk about Julius Assange case and the seized Bangladesh ship that was freed. We'll also talk about Zimbabwe, the ZiG currency that has brought uncertainty to the nation. We have this and more lined up for you shortly after the break. May you stay tuned with us.
Kuna venye unaweza angalia mtu venye amevaa and you already know which type of person this is.
Nowadays tuseme TikTok. TikTok.
Do you feel tumeacha our culture tukaanza kufuata menendo ya watu wengi?
Hakuna mtu anafanana kama wewe. Kumaanisha watu ni different.
Unajua huyo mtu amevaa na ako na motive.
Ako kazi yani.
Ako kazi, ako na mission. Ndio.
Ako job.
Ako job.
Is the shoulder. Hii ndio inafaa kuwa hapa. Sasa unaona venye hii imeshikanishwa, hii imeachana. So mimi nikivaa itakaa hivi, ikuje, ikave this shoulder, but ikifika kwa hii shoulder, there's this opening.
Kama kuna katatuka na expose.
Yes, sasa ulikuwa na katatuka butterfly, kataonekana hapo.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Ambassador, GBS Global News, and we are glad to have you join us today. Now, as we continue, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador called for the release of the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who had been held in the London's high-security Belmarsh prison since 2019. He stated it would be an act of justice and a message to the world on freedom of expression. During a press conference at the National Palace in Mexico on Tuesday, Assange is wanted by the U.S. authority on 18 charges, following the release of thousands of military and diplomatic documents relating to the Iraq and the Afghanistan wars, and faces up to 175 years in jail if found guilty. His legal team claims that he would not receive a fair trial in the U.S. and that his life could be in danger. The UK case is currently adjourned until May. Judges have asked the Washington for an assurance that an extradition and the case would not contravene the freedom of the expression or involve any prejudice during the trial regarding the Assange's nationality. and it would not mean the death penalty in the case of conviction. Assange was granted a political asylum by Ecuador in London, that is in 2012, which was dragged from the embassy by UK police and arrested in 2019.
For 18 years, and yet it has never had to issue a single retraction or apology. That's because what they print is the truth.
The First Amendment is very clear that the prosecution of Julian Assange is unconstitutional, but I don't have dramatic hopes in the court he will be tried in the U.S., which is in a part of Virginia that's close to the CIA.
And it's been a tense month for the crew of the Bangladesh, the flagged cargo carrier, Abdullahi vessel that was seized by 20 armed assailants on March 12th in the Indian Ocean, approximately 1,100 kilometers off east, that is Somali capital, in Mogadishu, freed after over a month in captivity. The ship en route from Maputo, that is Mozambique, to Hamia, the United Arab Emirates, along with 23 crew members, were under the control of the pirates, raising concerns about the resurgence of piracy in the region. Operation Atlanta had been closely monitoring the situation since the hijacking on Monday, and they confirmed the successful release of both the vessel and its crew. However, the circumstances surrounding the release still remained unclear at this time. And State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller commented on the absurdity to compare U.S. support for Israel with that for Ukraine after being repeatedly questioned about Washington's direct involvement in shooting down the Iranian missiles over the weekend. During a briefing on Monday, the U.S. national security spokesperson, that is John Kirby, was also questioned with a similar questions during his own briefing on Monday, appealing it was a matter of a different conflicts, different airspace, and different threat as a picture. Iran launched hundreds of drones and missiles towards Israel on Saturday night. In Tehran, its first direct attack on the Jewish state, signaling a major escalation of the tensions in the region.
So first of all, I will take the question, but you know I'm always going to call on you. I was trying to finish out in the region before coming back to the rest of the world. Go ahead. But
the question I keep hearing from the Ukrainian people, that why do you think they don't deserve the same?
If you look at our commitment to Ukraine, it has included significant provision of missile defense to allow the Ukrainian military to shoot down drones and missiles and attacks on the Ukrainian people. That is something that this administration is committed to, with billions and billions of dollars in weapon systems, and it's not just American weapon systems, but we have worked to source air defense systems from around the world to help defend the Ukrainian people against Russian attacks.
But what happened in Israel last week happens in Ukraine every week, and it bears, I mean, I don't know, we cover this every day, that the Ukrainians are facing the same drones coming from Iran, and they give it to Russia to attack on them. My question is, which U.S. that they have seen on TV yesterday, which U.S. is the true friend of Ukraine?
So, Alex, I am just going to completely reject the premise of that question. I don't think it accurately represents the United States' commitment to Ukraine. We have been committed to Ukraine since day one, and our record bears that out. When you look at the international coalition that we have assembled to respond to Russia's aggression, to hold Russia accountable through sanctions and export control measures, and again, through the provision of weapons systems. And I mentioned air defense because that's most relevant to your question, but other systems as well, offensive systems that they have used to take the fight to the Russian army and reclaim half the territory that Russia took from them. So I think the premise of the question, frankly, is just a bit absurd because it does not match the reality of our record when it comes to supporting the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian military.
That's quite a comparison. Now moving on, in Zimbabwe, a new currency was eagerly awaited to bring stability and hope to a struggling economy. But as the launch of the ZIG currency, ZIG, faced delays, Zimbabweans were left grappling with the uncertainty. The delay in ZIG's launch prompted the widespread of a reluctance towards the Zim dollar, with the US dollar presently dominating the nation's market. Here is more. The new ZIG currency, which was supposed to be effective from April 8th, was delayed until April 30th, leaving the US dollar dominating the market.
When you introduce new measures, you'll be hoping that you will bring stability, pricing stability, and that you will lower inflation as an end result. But there are a lot of moving parts that they need to adhere to. The first and foremost being disciplined. They need to be sincere about their printing programs. They need to be sincere about money growth, because that has been the reason. You and I, we actually don't have the capacity to be injecting liquidity into the economy or to be printing new money, but capacity rests with the authorities through growing money supply and injecting that. So they need to be disciplined about that.
Before the announcement of the launch of the new gold-backed currency, ZIG, the Zim dollar was trading at 28,720 to $1 US. Zimbabweans are really worried about the extent to which this new ZIG will be able to curb inflation that has been going on in the country.
I sell fruits for a living, and I have been saving the RTGS dollar for a while in order to pay tuition for my children. But now we woke up to the news that our money is no longer valuable. I don't even know how I will navigate this. You can no longer buy anything for 50 cents. If you are in need of it, then you have to buy double the portion. They should have circulated the ZIG on the day that it was launched. After all, we use the Zimbabwean currency as change for US dollar notes.
Jane for Macau, GBS News. Kenya's Helen Obiri secured her second consecutive victory at the Boston Marathon, crossing the finishing line in 2 hours, 22 minutes and 37 seconds. Leading a Kenyan sweep of the podium, Obiri, a two-time world 5,000 meters champion, once again demonstrated her versatility and stamina in her 4th career marathon service. Let's watch.
Minutes and 37 seconds and leading a Kenyan sweep of the podium. Obiri, a two-time world 5,000 meters champion, once again demonstrated her versatility and stamina in only her 4th career marathon race. The women's race started with a pack of 20 athletes staying together through the first half, conserving energy for the challenging miles ahead. At the 30-kilometer mark, the field began to thin as contenders like Obiri, Sharon Lukedi, and Edna Kiplagat pushed ahead. By the time they reached 35 kilometers, only 12 runners remained in contention. Obiri, alongside Lukedi and Kiplagat, broke away from the pack, establishing a formidable lead. Despite the pressure, Lukedi stayed within striking distance of Obiri, showcasing her strength and determination as a relatively new marathon runner. However, it was Obiri's season experience and finishing prowess that ultimately propelled her to victory. As the runners approached the final kilometers, Obiri accelerated, leaving Lukedi behind to secure her 3rd marathon win in a remarkable time of 2 hours, 22 minutes and 37 seconds. Lukedi, also relatively inexperienced in marathon running, displayed impressive resilience to claim 2nd place in 2 hours, 22 minutes and 45 seconds. Edna Kiplagat completed the Kenyan podium sweep, finishing 3rd in 2 hours, 23 minutes and 21 seconds. Reflecting on her triumph, Obiri expressed her joy and satisfaction, acknowledging the strength of her competitors.
Nimefurahia sana. Unajua ukikuja hapa kila mtu aliyekuwa anaangalia ile Obiri ata defend title. but nayo kudefend title nimeona sio kazi rahisi, mpaka ufanye bidii, but finally nimefurahia sana because win ya imenipatia like ponga points towards Olympics. You know, Sharon was there and na si wote tuko, but tumekimbia vizuri, so Kenya ni kuja top 3, tunaonyesha like we are capable kufanya ile kosi ya.
And that news brings us to the end of our Ambassador GBS Global News. It's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. And just to do a recap for you, we've talked about the Israeli-Iran conflict, where Israeli military chief issued a stern warning to Israel after a recent retaliatory attack on Monday, stating clearly that the nation, we are talking of Iran, would face consequences for its recent actions. They will choose their time. And we've also talked about Kenya Power implementation of cheaper electricity bills for its residents, bringing relief to the consumers across the nation in times of the tough economy. And also concerning Sudan, there have been developments. We've covered on the international donors who pledged over $2.1 billion, we are talking in dollars, for humanitarian aid to the nation following a year of a long conflict that has pushed the nation to the brink of famine. And there is also the charges against Donald Trump, which are at stake. We are talking of the historic hush money trial concerning Donald Trump that got underway on Monday with a grueling process of the selecting of the jury to hear the case. Not forgetting about Togo analysis of the upcoming elections. What do we expect in the upcoming legislative elections? And also about Kenya-South Korea ties and the EU-China trade war. We'll keep you updated and at the forefront of these developments as you keep it at the Ambassador. I've been your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the GBS Global News Ambassador tomorrow, same time, same place, from Monday to Friday. And may you all have a splendid and the most beautiful and wonderful afternoon.